Captain John Martinez stood on the bridge of Earth's Pride, staring at the message that had just arrived from the Galactic Council. His hands shook as he read the words again. The blue holographic text floated in front of him, each word hitting him like a physical blow. All human presence in Council space must end within 30 standard days. Any human found beyond the Outer Rim after this deadline will be considered an enemy of the galaxy. John had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 23 years. He had fought pirates, explored new worlds, and helped build the colonies that now dotted human space. He had never imagined this day would come. "Sir?" Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park stepped up beside him. Her voice was quiet, respectful. She had seen the message too. "What are your orders?" John looked around the bridge at his crew. These were good people. They had families on Earth, on Mars, on the colony worlds. They had built lives among the stars. And now they were being told to leave it all behind. "Get me Admiral Sullivan," John said. His voice was steady, but Lisa could see the anger in his eyes. The communication came through quickly. Admiral Kate Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes told John she had been dealing with this crisis for hours already. "John," she said, "I know you've seen the message." "Yes, Admiral." "What are we going to do?" Kate was quiet for a moment. She had been asking herself the same question since the Council's decision came through. "We're going to comply." "Comply?" John couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Admiral, we have colonies on 47 worlds. We have mining stations, research, facilities, trade routes. We can't just abandon everything." "We can and we will," Kate said firmly. "John, I've run the numbers. If we fight, we lose. The Council has the Zephyrian Empire, the Crystalline Collective, and the Void Hunters. They have 10,000 ships for every one of ours. Fighting them would be suicide." John felt his heart sink. He knew she was right. The human fleet was strong, but it was nothing compared to the combined might of the three great powers. The Council had made their decision carefully. They knew humans couldn't win a war against them. "So we just give up?" Lisa asked. "We just let them push us around?" "No," Kate said. "We survive. We gather our people and we find a new home. Somewhere far from here, somewhere they can't reach us." The next few hours were chaos. Messages flew between human colonies and Earth. Emergency meetings were held. Plans were made and changed and made again. The 30-day deadline seemed impossibly short. Dr. Richard Stone was in his laboratory on Research Station Alpha when the news came. As humanity's leading expert on alien biology, he had worked with many council species over the years. He thought he understood them. Now he realized he had been wrong. "They're afraid of us," he told his assistant as they packed up their research. "All these years I thought they accepted us, but they were just waiting for an excuse to get rid of us." The evacuation began immediately. The largest ships in the human fleet were turned into passenger vessels. Cargo holds were converted into sleeping quarters. Every available transport was pressed into service on the colony world of New Texas. Governor Steve Johnson watched as families loaded their belongings onto evacuation ships. Children cried as they said goodbye to their pets. Parents tried to decide what to take and what to leave behind. A lifetime of memories had to fit into a single suitcase. "This isn't right," Steve said to his aide. "These people built something. Here they have homes, businesses, lives. How can the Council just take it all away?" The aide had no answer. Nobody did. Back on Earth, the debate raged in the Global Assembly. Some members wanted to fight. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested dividing the human population, letting some stay while others left. "We stay together," Kate Sullivan told them, "all of us. We're not leaving anyone behind to face the Council's justice," the Assembly voted. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would comply with the exile order, but they would do it as one people. As the evacuation continued, stories began to spread. Some were true, some were not. People said the Council had been planning this for years. They said human colonies had been attacked. They said the alien races were celebrating humanity's departure. Monica Davis, chief engineer of the Colonial Transport New Haven worked around the clock to prepare her ship for the journey. She had to fit 3,000 people into a vessel designed for a crew of 200. Every corridor became a living space. Every storage room became a bedroom. "Where are we going?" People asked her. "Away," she answered. "Far away." The 30 days passed quickly. Human ships gathered at the outer rim, the edge of known space. Beyond lay the dark void between galaxies. It was empty, cold, and dangerous. But it was the only place the Council couldn't follow. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the last human transport cross the boundary. Behind them lay everything they had built. Ahead lay nothing but uncertainty. "Admiral," her communications officer called. "We're receiving a message from Earth's Pride." Captain Martinez's face appeared on screen. "Admiral, all human assets are now beyond the outer rim. The evacuation is complete." "Thank you, John. Signal the fleet." "We're moving out." As the human ships disappeared into the darkness, Lisa Park sent one final message back toward Earth. Her words were simple, but they carried the hopes of an entire species. "This is not goodbye. This is see you later." The message would be remembered. In the years to come, when humanity faced starvation and despair in the void between stars, those words would give them strength. They would remind them that exile was not the end. It was just the beginning. The great ships of humanity sailed into the darkness, carrying millions of people toward an uncertain future. They had lost their homes, their colonies, their place in the galaxy, but they had not lost their hope. They would survive. They would adapt. They would grow strong in the darkness between stars, and someday, when they were ready, they would return. 50 years had passed since humanity left their home galaxy. The great fleet of exile ships drifted through the empty void between stars, a collection of metal islands in an ocean of darkness. What had once been a desperate evacuation had become something else entirely. The humans were no longer refugees. They were survivors. Commander Alex Turner had never seen Earth. He had never walked on solid ground under an open sky. Born aboard the colony ship New Haven, he knew only the metal corridors and recycled air of space. But this did not make him weak. It made him different. Alex stood in the observation deck of New Haven, watching the work crews outside. Men and women in spacesuits moved between the ships, building new connections, adding new sections. The fleet was growing, changing, becoming something the Galactic Council had never imagined. "Commander," called engineer Monica Davis as she floated up beside him. Her hair was gray now, but her eyes still held the fire that had driven her through the dark years. "The new habitat ring is ready for testing." Alex nodded. Monica had been working on the habitat ring for 3 years. It was a massive structure that would spin around New Haven, creating artificial gravity for the families aboard. Children needed gravity to grow properly. The fleet had learned this the hard way. "Good work, Monica. How are the other projects going?" The mining ships found another asteroid rich in rare metals. The fabrication plants are working at full capacity, and the research teams think they've made a breakthrough with the quantum drives. Alex smiled. The quantum drives were Monica's greatest achievement. They could push a ship faster than anything the Council races had ever built. The Exile fleet could now move through space at speeds that would have been impossible 50 years ago. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Gary Lopez as he approached them, "we're getting a signal from the scout ships. Captain Johnson thinks he's found something." Alex turned toward the communication console. Captain Steve Johnson led the fleet's long-range scouts. His job was to search the void for anything useful: resources, ancient wrecks, or places where the fleet could rest and resupply. "Put him through," Alex ordered. Steve's face appeared on the screen. He looked excited, which was unusual. Steve had seen many things in the void, and few of them impressed him anymore. "Alex, you need to see this. We found something big." "Really big? What kind of big?" "The kind that changes everything." "I'm sending you the coordinates. Bring the science ships." Alex looked at Monica. She was already checking the star charts, trying to figure out where Steve was calling from. "It's 3 days away with the quantum drives," she said. Whatever it is, it's not moving. Get the fleet ready, Alex ordered. We're going to take a look. The journey to Steve's coordinates took them deeper into the void than humanity had ever gone. The stars grew fewer and dimmer. The cold of space seemed to press against the ship hulls, but the crews of the Exile fleet were used to the cold. They had learned to find warmth in each other. Dr. Nancy White worked in the archaeology lab, preparing her equipment. Nancy was the fleet's expert on ancient civilizations. She had studied the ruins found on dozens of worlds during humanity's expansion. Now she wondered what secrets lay waiting in the darkness. "Nancy," called her assistant, Dr. Helen Price. "You should see this." Nancy looked up from her work. Helen was staring at a display screen, her mouth open in amazement. "What is it?" "The initial scans from the scout ships. Nancy, it's a structure. Artificial, and it's huge." Nancy looked at the screen. The structure was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was a ring of metal and crystal, thousands of kilometers across. Energy readings showed it was still active after who knew how many years. "How old is it?" Nancy asked. "The radiation patterns suggest millions of years." "Maybe longer." Nancy felt her heart racing. A structure that old, still functioning, could only mean one thing. They had found something left behind by the builders when the fleet arrived. At the coordinates, even Alex was impressed. The structure hung in space like a giant's bracelet, glowing with soft blue light. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "What is it?" Monica asked. "It's a jump gate," Nancy said quietly, "but not like any we've seen before. This one is different, more advanced. The jump gates humanity knew about were crude things, barely functional. They could move a ship a few light years at most, but this structure radiated power. It felt alive. "Commander," Gary called from the station. "We're getting a signal from the structure. It's trying to communicate." Alex felt the hair on his arm stand up. "What's it saying?" "It's not using words. It's sending images directly to our minds." Alex closed his eyes and felt the presence touch his thoughts. Images flowed through his mind. Ancient civilizations spanning multiple galaxies, builders who had shaped reality itself, and a network of gates that connected everything. "It's a map," he whispered. "It's showing us a map." The images continued. The network of gates stretched across the universe, connecting distant galaxies. But most of the gates were dark now, their builders long dead. Only a few remained active. "There are others," Nancy said. Her eyes were closed, receiving the same images. "Other gates. Other places we can go." Alex opened his eyes and looked at his crew. They were all receiving the images now. The entire bridge crew was seeing the same vision of an ancient network. "That could take them anywhere in the universe. Can we use it?" Monica asked. "The structure is responding to our presence," Gary reported. "It's powering up." Alex made a decision that would change humanity's future. "Signal the fleet, tell them we're going through." "Sir," Gary said nervously, "we don't know where it leads." "Anywhere is better than nowhere," Alex replied. "And we've spent 50 years learning to survive in impossible places. Whatever is on the other side, we can handle it." The jump gate activated with a sound like thunder. Space itself seemed to twist and bend around the ancient structure. One by one, the ships of the human fleet passed through the gateway. They emerged in a new galaxy, one filled with dying stars and ancient secrets. And waiting for them were the builders themselves, the last survivors of a race that had once ruled the universe. The exile was over. The real journey was just beginning. The human fleet emerged from the jump gate into a galaxy unlike anything they had ever seen. The stars here were old and dying, their light dim and red. Ancient worlds drifted through space, their surfaces covered in the ruins of civilizations that had fallen millions of years ago. Commander Alex Turner stood on the bridge of New Haven, watching the scanner readings. This galaxy was not empty. Something lived here. Something was waiting for them. "Commander," called communications officer Gary Lopez, "we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the third planet in this system." Alex felt his heart beat faster. After 50 years in the void, they were finally meeting someone new. But were they friend or enemy? "Put it through," Alex ordered. The transmission came through clearly. But it was not in any human language. Instead, the words appeared directly, in their minds, translated by some advanced technology. "Welcome, children of Earth, we have been waiting for you." Alex looked at his crew. They were all hearing the same words. Engineer Monica Davis stepped forward, her face filled with wonder. "How? Do they know we're from Earth?" she asked. "We know many things," came the reply. "We have watched your journey through the void. We have seen your strength, your unity, your refusal to give up. You are worthy. Worthy of what?" Alex asked aloud. "Worthy of the inheritance. Come to us. Come to the world you see before you. There is much to discuss." The planet was beautiful despite its age. Blue oceans reflected the light of the dying star. Green continents showed signs of careful tending. This was not a dead world. It was a garden maintained by patient hands. Ambassador Peter Collins led the first contact team down to the planet's surface. Peter had been chosen for his skill with languages and his calm nature. If anyone could navigate this first meeting, it was him. The landing party stepped out of their shuttle onto a platform made of some smooth, white material. The air was breathable, though it tasted strange. In the distance, they could see structures that looked like a cross between buildings and living trees. "Welcome," said a voice behind them. They turned to see a figure walking toward them. It was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shimmer like water. Its eyes were large and kind, holding depths of knowledge that made Peter feel very young. "I am Keeper Zan," the being said. "I am the last of the builders who remains awake. The others sleep, waiting for the end." "You're the builders?" Peter asked. "The ones who made the jump gates?" "We are what remains of them," Zan replied. "Once we numbered in the billions. We built cities among the stars and shaped reality itself. But time and war have reduced us to a handful of sleepers and one lonely keeper." Zan led them through the city. Peter was amazed by what he saw. The buildings were alive, growing, and changing as they watched. Gardens floated in the air, tended by machines that looked like metal butterflies. The technology was so advanced it seemed like magic. "Why did you call us here?" Peter asked. "Because you are the first species we have encountered that reminds us of ourselves," Zan said. "Most races, when they reach the stars, become comfortable. They stop growing, stop adapting. They build their empires and then stagnate. They stopped at a building that looked like a crystal tree. Inside, Peter could see thousands of sleeping forms, each one preserved in a glowing pod. "These are the last of my people," Zan said. "They chose to sleep rather than watch the galaxy die. But I remained awake, watching, waiting. Waiting for what? For you. For a species that could take our place? The galaxy needs guardians, Peter Collins. It needs someone willing to fight. For the weak, to preserve knowledge, to keep the darkness at bay." Peter felt the weight of those words. "You want us to replace you?" "I want you to surpass us," Zan said. "We failed in the end. We became too proud, too certain of our superiority. The younger races united against us and drove us to extinction, but you have been tested by exile. You have learned humility, along with strength." Back on the fleet, Chief Engineer Karen Adams was working with a team of volunteers. Zan had offered to share builder technology with humanity, but the price was high. The neural interfaces required to operate builder machines were dangerous. Many of the volunteers did not survive the process. "Karen," called Dr. Helen Price as she monitored the latest volunteer. "His brain activity is off the charts. I think he's going to make it." Karen looked at the readings. Lieutenant Danny Park was the 15th volunteer to attempt the neural interface. The first 10 had died. The next 4 had survived but were left in comas. Danny was different. His brain was adapting to the builder technology. "He's conscious," Helen said in amazement. "Danny, can you hear me?" Danny opened his eyes, but they were different now. They glowed with a soft blue light, the same color as the builder machines. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that hadn't been there before. "I can hear everything," he said. "The machines, the planet, the sleeping builders. It's all connected." Karen felt a chill run down her spine. The volunteers who survived the interface came back changed. They were still human, but they were also something more. Meanwhile, General Ryan Clark was studying the military applications of builder technology. The builders had left behind weapons that could reshape reality itself, ships that could appear and disappear at will, devices that could turn matter into energy and back again. "This changes everything," he told his staff. "With this technology, we don't just have a fleet. We have the power to reshape the galaxy." But it was Dr. Nancy White who made the most disturbing discovery. Deep in the Builder archives, she found the true history of their extinction. The Builders had not died from age or disease. They had been systematically hunted down by an alliance of younger species. "It's the same pattern," she told Alex during their daily briefing. "A powerful species emerges, grows strong, and then the others unite to destroy them. It happened to the Builders. It happened to us with the Exile. But we survived," Alex pointed out. "Yes, we survived, and now we have their technology. The question is, what do we do with it?" Alex thought about the sleeping Builders, about Zan's lonely vigil, about the volunteers who had died to master alien technology. Humanity had been given a gift, but it was also a burden. "We make sure it doesn't happen again," he said finally. "To us or to anyone else." Zan appeared in the doorway of the briefing room. The Builder moved silently, his feet barely touching the ground. "You begin to understand," he said. "Power without wisdom leads to destruction. But wisdom without power leads to extinction. You must find the balance." Alex looked at the alien who had become their teacher. "Will you help us?" "I will teach you what I can, but the choices you make will be your own. The galaxy awaits, Commander Turner. It is time to decide what kind of species you will become." Outside the windows of the briefing room, the human fleet hung in space around the Builder world. Soon, they would have to make a choice. They could remain here, safe in the shadow of ancient wisdom, or they could take their new power and return to the galaxy that had cast them out. The Exile had made them strong, the Builders had made them powerful. Now it was time to see what they would do with both. 200 years had passed since humanity left their home galaxy. The Exile fleet had grown into something magnificent and terrible. They called themselves the Terran Empire now, and they were ready to return home. Emperor Jake Morrison stood in the command center of his flagship, Eternal Horizon. He was the great-grandson of one of the original Exile commanders, but he had never seen the galaxy of his ancestors. That was about to change. "Are all fleets ready?" Jake asked his staff. Fleet Admiral Claire Watson stepped forward. Her ships were spread across multiple galaxies now, connected by the Builder Jumpgate network. The human fleet had grown from a few hundred refugee ships to thousands of advanced warships. "All fleets report ready, Your Majesty. We have forces positioned at 17 different jump gates leading into Council space." "They won't see us coming," Jake nodded. The plan was simple. Humanity would return to their home galaxy, but not as refugees. They would return as conquerors, bringing justice for the Exile and freedom for the oppressed. "What about the liberation forces?" Jake asked. Colonel Gary Lopez, now an old man but still sharp, answered from his position at the tactical display. "Our advanced scouts have identified 12 species that have been enslaved or conquered by the Council since we left. They're ready to rebel as soon as we arrive." Jake felt a surge of satisfaction. The Galactic Council had not been idle during humanity's absence. They had grown more brutal, more oppressive. Entire species had been reduced to slavery. Worlds had been strip-mined. The Council had become everything humanity had feared it would. "Signal the fleet," Jake ordered. "It's time to go home." The first jump gate activated with a flash of blue light. Human ships poured through like a tide of metal and energy. They appeared in the outer rim of Council space, where mining colonies scraped resources from dead worlds. The Council forces were caught completely off guard. Their ships were old, their weapons outdated. Against the advanced technology of the Terran Empire, they had no chance. Admiral Claire Watson commanded the assault from her flagship, Vengeance. Her ships moved like ghosts, appearing from nowhere, striking with weapons that ignored shields and armor, then vanishing before the enemy could respond. "First wave complete," she reported to Jake. "All mining stations have been liberated. We freed approximately 50,000 slaves from 7 different species." Jake smiled grimly. The slaves were mostly from species that had tried to resist the Council over the years. They had been broken, their spirits crushed. But when they saw human ships arriving, hope returned to their eyes. The news of humanity's return spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The Council had told everyone that the humans were dead, lost in the void between stars. Now they were back, and they brought with them power beyond imagination on the Zephyrian homeworld. Emperor Zaktal called an emergency session of the High Council. The Zephyrians had been the strongest voice calling for humanity's exile 2 centuries ago. Now they were terrified. "How is this possible?" demanded Councillor Veltar. "The humans were refugees. They had nothing when they left. They have everything now," replied Intelligence Chief Morden. "Our scouts report ships unlike anything we've ever seen. They move through space without using jump gates. They appear and disappear at will, and their weapons can destroy entire fleets." Emperor Zaktai felt fear creeping into his heart. The Zephyrians had grown comfortable in their dominance. They had forgotten what it meant to face a real threat. "Send an ambassador," he ordered. "Find out what they want." The Zephyrian ambassador, a diplomatic veteran named Zektar, met with the humans aboard the Eternal Horizon. He expected to find the same desperate refugees who had been driven from the galaxy centuries before. Instead, he found an empire-foreign. Minister Diana Collins received the ambassador in a chamber that defied physics. The walls showed views of distant galaxies, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with power. "Ambassador Zektar," Diana said politely. "It's been a long time." Zektar was shocked. Diana looked human, but there was something different about her. Her eyes held depths that seemed to reflect the stars themselves. And when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that made his mind vibrate. "Minister Collins," he said carefully, "the Council wishes to discuss the recent incidents in the Outer Rim." "You mean the liberation of your slave colonies?" Diana asked with a smile. "Yes, let's discuss that. The Council recognizes that there may have been misunderstandings in the past. We are prepared to offer compensation for any hardships humanity may have endured." Diana's smile faded. "Compensation? You think you can pay us off?" The Council values peace above all else. Surely we can reach an agreement." "We had an agreement," Diana said coldly. "It was called the Galactic Accords. It guaranteed the rights of all species to exist in peace. You broke that agreement when you exiled us." Zektar felt sweat forming on his forehead. "That was different. Humanity was aggressive. The Council feared for galactic stability." "And now?" Diana asked. "Are you afraid now?" Before Zektar could answer, the chamber filled with light. Images appeared in the air around them, showing the liberation of the slave colonies. Zektar watched in horror as human ships effortlessly destroyed Council fleets. "This is what you feared," Diana said. "This is what your exile created. You wanted to remove humanity from the galaxy. Instead, you turned us into something far more dangerous." Meanwhile, on the former human colony of New Texas, Colonel Danny Park led the liberation forces. Danny was one of the volunteers who had survived the Builder neural interface. He was still human, but he was also something more. The colony had been strip-mined after the human evacuation. The beautiful forests and plains had been turned into open pits. The cities had been demolished. It was a wasteland. "Scan for survivors," Danny ordered his troops. The scanners found them hidden in underground bunkers. Humans who had tried to stay behind during the exile. They had been hiding for 2 centuries, living like animals in their own world. "Please," whispered an old woman as Danny's soldiers found her. "Don't hurt us." We're nobody, we're nothing. Danny knelt beside her, his glowing eyes gentle. You're not nothing, you're human, and you're free now. The old woman stared at him in wonder. Are you ... Are you really human? I am, Danny said. We all are. We never stopped being human. We just became something more. As the liberation continued, more horrors were discovered. Mass graves filled with humans who had tried to hide. Concentration camps where human children had been used for medical experiments. Evidence of systematic genocide, the reports reached. Jake on his flagship. He read them in silence, his face growing harder with each page. Your Majesty, Admiral Watson said quietly, the fleet is asking for orders. What do we do about this? Jake looked up from the reports. His eyes, like those of all the enhanced humans, glowed with inner fire. We make sure it never happens again, he said, to anyone. The Council's response was swift and brutal. They assembled their greatest fleets, calling in favors from every allied species. The armada that gathered was the largest in galactic history. Millions of ships, trillions of soldiers, weapons that could shatter planets. But when they arrived at the coordinates where the human fleet was supposed to be, they found nothing. Empty space, no ships, no bases, no trace of human presence. Where are they? Demanded Admiral Kexter of the Void Hunters. His question was answered when the human fleet appeared around them. Not from jump gates or hyperspace, but from somewhere else entirely. They simply materialized from nothing, surrounding the massive Council armada. Surrender, came a voice that spoke directly to every mind in the enemy fleet. Surrender and be spared. Continue this war and be destroyed. The Council. Fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams, missile swarms, gravity weapons that could crush matter itself. The barrage was enough to destroy entire solar systems. The human ships absorbed it all without taking damage. Then they fired back. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the greatest armada in galactic history was nothing but debris floating in space. The Terran Empire had announced its return, and the galaxy would never be the same. Emperor Jake Morrison stood in his command center, watching the last of the enemy ships surrender. The exile was over. The age of the Galactic Council was ending. The age of humanity had begun. 1 year after the Great Battle, the galaxy was a different place. The Galactic Council was gone, scattered to the winds like dust. In its place stood the Terran Empire, but it was not the tyranny that many had feared. Prime Minister Amy Rodriguez walked through the halls of New Geneva Station, the new capital of galactic government. Amy had been a child during the exile, born on one of the refugee ships. Now she governed 1,000 worlds and spoke for 100 different species. The morning reports, Prime Minister, said her aide, handing her a datapad. Amy read through the reports as she walked. Trade was flowing freely between the former council worlds. The slave species had been freed and given their own planets to govern. Most importantly, there had been no wars in 6 months. How are the integration programs going? Amy asked. Better than expected. Most of the former council species are adapting well to the new system. The Zephyrians are having the most trouble, but even they are starting to cooperate. Amy nodded. The Zephyrians had been the hardest to convince. They had ruled the galaxy for so long that they couldn't imagine being just another member species. But they were learning. In the Outer Rim, Admiral Tony Green commanded the Imperial Exploration Fleet. His ships were pushing beyond the boundaries of known space, using the Builder Jumpgate network to reach distant galaxies. Humanity had learned the importance of never being trapped in one place again. Admiral, called his navigator, we've found something interesting in the next galaxy over. Tony looked at the scanner readings. Another galaxy, another opportunity. The Terran Empire was growing, spreading across the universe like seeds on the wind. What kind of interesting? Tony asked. A species that's just reached the stars? They remind me of the old stories about early humanity. Curious, aggressive, quick to adapt, Tony smiled. Send a diplomatic team. Let's see if we can help them. Avoid our mistakes. Back on New Geneva Station, Amy was meeting with representatives from across the galaxy. The great hall was filled with beings of every shape and size, crystalline entities that sang instead of speaking, gas-based life forms that existed as clouds of sentient mist, humans with glowing eyes who could interface directly with builder technology. The motion to establish new trade routes has been approved, Amy announced. The colony ships will launch next month. A Zephyrian delegate raised his hand. Prime Minister, some of my people are concerned about human dominance in the new territories. Amy looked at the delegate calmly. Senator Velkar, humans make up less than 30% of the colonial volunteers. The new worlds will be governed by elected councils representing all species fairly. But humans control the military, the Zephyrian pressed, and the builder technology. Humans earned that responsibility, said Senator Kriksta, a member of the former slave species called the Mindari. They freed us when no one else would. They've proven they can be trusted with power. Amy watched the exchange with satisfaction. The galaxy was learning to govern itself. Slowly, carefully, but it was happening on Earth. Now restored and beautiful again, Empress Sarah Johnson stood in the memorial garden. Sarah was the great-granddaughter of one of the original Exile fleet commanders. She wore the crown of the Terran Empire, but she also carried the memories of those who had suffered. The memorial garden contained the names of every human who had died during the exile. Millions of names carved into black stone, reflecting the light of Earth's sun. At the center stood a statue of a refugee ship, forever sailing toward the stars. Your Majesty, said her guard captain, the ceremony is about to begin. Sarah nodded and walked toward the great plaza. Today marked the 10th anniversary of humanity's return. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to Earth to celebrate, but also to remember. The plaza was filled with beings from hundreds of worlds. Former enemies stood beside former slaves. Children who had never known war played games with children from species that had once fought bitter battles. Sarah stepped up to the podium and looked out at the crowd. Her speech would be broadcast across the galaxy, reaching billions of beings on thousands of worlds. 10 years ago, she began, humanity returned to this galaxy. We came not as conquerors, but as liberators. We came not seeking revenge, but seeking justice. The crowd listened in respectful silence. Even the Zephyrians, once so proud and arrogant, had come to respect the human empress. The exile taught us many things, Sarah continued. It taught us that power without compassion leads to tyranny. It taught us that fear of others leads to hatred. Most importantly, it taught us that we are stronger together than apart. In the crowd, Dr. Helen Price listened with tears in her eyes. Helen was old now, one of the last survivors of the original exile. She remembered the dark years in the void when survival was uncertain and hope was scarce. We build now not an empire of conquest, but an empire of cooperation, Sarah said. Every species, every world, every being has value. Every voice deserves to be heard. The crowd erupted in cheers. Not just humans, but beings from across the galaxy. The Terran Empire had proven that power could be used wisely, that strength could protect the weak instead of oppressing them. After the ceremony, Sarah met privately with a group of children from the Imperial Academy. These children came from dozens of different species, all learning together, all preparing to inherit the galaxy. Your Majesty, asked a young Zephyrian girl, my grandfather says humans were once weak. How did you become so strong? Sarah knelt down to the child's level. We became strong by helping each other. When we were exiled, we could have given up. Instead, we worked together. We shared our food, our knowledge, our hope. That's real strength. Will you teach us to be strong too? Asked a human boy. You're already learning, Sarah said with a smile. Every day you spend with your friends from other species, you become stronger. Every time you help someone different from yourself, you grow. As the day ended, Sarah stood again in the memorial garden. The names of the dead seemed to glow in the twilight. These people had died in exile, never knowing that their sacrifice would lead to something beautiful. We kept the promise, she whispered to the stone. We came home, and we made sure no one else would ever suffer as we did. In the distance, ships launched from Earth's spaceports. Some carried diplomats to distant worlds. Others carried teachers and doctors to species that needed help. A few carried explorers heading to galaxies so distant that their light had not yet reached Earth. The exile had ended, but the journey continued. Humanity had learned that home was not a place but a people. As long as they remembered the lessons of the dark years, as long as they used their power to protect rather than oppress, they would never truly be homeless again. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. New species waited to be discovered. New worlds waited to be explored. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, other exiles might be struggling to survive, hoping for rescue. The Terran Empire would be ready for them. They would welcome the lost, protect the weak, and ensure that never again would anyone face the void alone. The age of exile was over. The age of hope had begun.